Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And from wherever you're listening and tuning in, a very warm welcome. You can share it in your chat that from where you logged in and say hi to each everyone. So today we're going to discuss about leadership. This is the skill, this which is the top most desired skill by HR and recruiters because effective leadership, is one of the highly seen skill which can actually flourish any business. And good leadership cultivates sense of greater good, motivates, inspire, trust, and provide purpose and direction. In words of Steve Jobs, management is about persuading people to do things they don't want to do, while leadership is about inspiring people to do things they never thought they could do. So, in today's business world, it is like they leadership skills is required where people can assume leadership by themselves. It's not that they will be given a title or a certain post or a job and they will be asked by management to lead a team. Everyone is required to lead on their own. And this is the main thing which is HR or the other recruiters are looking for in the potential candidate or the employee. So that's why I have invited a great guest today who is the expert on leadership. Her name is Izabela Lundberg. She is highly skilled leadership advisor, strategist, consultant, and a keynote speaker. Through her leadership program and training, her client increased productivity by more than 60%. And that's not all. She is a humble person and one of my favorite personalities on LinkedIn because her content and podcast are always inspiring and insightful. She's also Forbes Coaches Council member. So let's welcome Isabella. Hello, Isabella. Very
Hi,
warm welcome. Thank you so
great,
much for joining us today.
absolutely great to. Thank you first of all for a great intro, for opportunity to be here with you and your global audience. But I also just wanted to say, great to see you.
Yeah, great to have you. I mean, I've been following you since like last year, and all the time, your content is always inspiring, very thought provoking, and you always learn. Like I always learn from your posts and your podcast. Thank you for providing like continuous educating us and providing your or sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, and I'm gonna have a big admiration for you and everything you do, specifically as a woman in Middle East and woman that is leveraging her psychology degree and breaking the barriers. So I just wanted to say kudo you and congratulations.
Thank you so much. So let's see that who has joined from us, and like Benjamin is saying, "Hi, thank you for joining." Leslie is here, and she is also saying hi from Florida. Uh, this Kareem is saying hi, and she's someone I can't see the name is saying the LinkedIn user. It's from South Africa, and Leslie is also saying hi to Isabella. And okay.
Great to meet you, Leslie. Thank you for being
Yeah,
with
and Niloy, but he is also one of my favorite. He is a very humble person, and he's a great help. And thank you for joining today. You both are amazing. Absolutely, you two are very amazing, and thank you for joining. Yeah.
me. Yay.
So, anyway, so before we move to the discussion, let us tell us about yourself. That how you came into the field, what struggle you face, and just to let us know about your journey.
I will try to be very brief, but to really highlight the key points that will be very beneficial for our global audience here today. obviously all of us are born somewhere, right? Either the country that we didn't have a choice or location, and into families that we end up to nurturing our relationships. And I was born in former Yugoslavia, and I had privilege to be actually part of phenomenal family, very very good foundation that gave me and instilled in me from my father to my mom to other family members, my grandma. But I had a very early big role models. And
Yeah.
I always had these eyes full of wonder and curiosity, and I knew the bigger world existed. I was always fascinated by globe, by world maps, history and geography, my favorite subjects. And I was reading books at least 4 or 5 years ahead of my school friends and teammates because I just could not get enough of information. So that gave me phenomenal foundation, not only who I was as a child, but then who I became as a teenager and as a result as a young adult. I didn't know at that time how much that foundation actually put it foundation of the leadership that we're seeing and experiencing today, that we need more than ever, which is knowing yourself, discovering yourself, operate with integrity, and have a very strong sense of ethos, specifically in times in turmoil when those are lacking, right?
Yes.
Fortunately, I experienced unspeakable events and collapse of former Yugoslavia in split second. I lost everything that I knew at that moment. And I had a chance to live, I mean, to travel and escape and live in 4 countries before moving to US as my fifth country on my own and establishing myself over and over in new environments. So I became also the conduit of change, not only because I was so much entrenched in change and transformation myself, but I also was able to really understand when we're adapting, when we're doing things on our own, taking initiative without waiting for others to tell us what we need to do, right? And invest in ourselves, either as culturally, linguistically, education, formal or informal. I was open to learn from everyone. And as a result, there was a big, huge opportunity to get to this country. I came here in the United States as a refugee. A lot of people don't know that. It was one of the most challenging moments in my life, actually, because starting reestablishing yourself for the fifth time
Yeah.
all over again.
Yeah, wow, what an inspiring journey you had. I mean, you faced a lot of countries, a lot of different situations, and most of all, like you, as you mentioned, you started fifth time, like all over and over again. This is a continuous struggle. Like I would say that a lot of people um, accept the defeat after like 2 or 3 times when they face the failures and when they see that they have to settle again. So it requires a lot of courage to start all over again. So I'm sure that is the reason why your like content or whatever you say, even your podcast are so inspiring because you have the experience of from all over the world from different people because that's how the richness in the content come from. So that's how we
Yes.
know. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I had a privilege to work with people from over 125 countries. And what
Oh,
is really powerful about that, I used to be part of the and run a nonprofit organization. They used to rehabilitate people that experienced the worst human atrocities. And as a psychologist, you know how difficult traumas should be. But when you have something that is inflicted from one to another, from one human to another, that is even more so challenging, right? It's been talking about it's not only just the war zones, but we're talking about children and human trafficking. We're talking about genocide and ethnic cleansing. We're talking about one of those very most challenging elements where we see those invisible wounds in a way where hearts are broken, souls are shattered, and people are trying to figure it out what to do now, right? And through
yeah,
those journeys, strength that we have and desire and I love what you mentioned earlier, we don't I personally never thought about it as like failure was not an option, right? But
yeah,
also what was never option for me is to give up because
yeah,
just again as I went back to it, and as we're discussing the leadership foundation, when you have such an installed value from people that not only you love, respect, but also sadly you lost during those conflicts, all
Yeah,
of those things become even more real.
yeah,
What do I do now, and how do I conduct myself? How do I move forward in life, right? And how do I
yeah.
help with my strength and resilience and stubbornness to do the same?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, what kept you motivated to go on? Because as you also mentioned that like when we face certain like these hard situations, we are prone to give up easily, and that's what a lot of people do. So what kept you motivated, and what kept that like this thing alive in you to go extra mile, to go for your dreams? How did you manage that?
That's an excellent question, and I think it's very relevant for today, right? Very
Yeah.
early on, I built a lot of emotional, not only intelligence, but emotional capacity. Because not always everything was super easy. And when you look it back, upbringing and being just a child who was curious, who was fun, wanted to have fun, who loved to play sports and play with boys. I was tomboy. Was just something that really quickly changed, but also gave me a sense of, was like, almost I try and never know, can I do it, right? So for me, it was never like, let me at least try once and then see how it goes, right? And there was never immediately dismissing opportunities or ideas. Obviously, some things I will know very quickly. I'm like, this just truly, it's not as wise thing to do. So I always kind of played forward and thought through why would this benefit me, or will benefit my friends or family, or what is the purpose, right? And it's interestingly, subconsciously, I start to really early on live on purpose. What helped me not to give up, not only just talk about the family values, but things I also learned in school, but also putting my servant leadership on the forefront. I remember times when I had an opportunity or responsibility, even though I didn't know how I am going to survive midst of the war, but responsibility also to support and help my diabetic sister to survive and escape the conflict. And it's so interesting when we take away ourselves and start thinking how we can support someone not only that we love so much and that depends on us and needs our help, changes completely. It's like gives you that extra strength that you never know you had, and then you just don't think about it as an option or failing or whatever it's going to be. You just keep going and keep
Yeah.
adjusting, and then you then see what's working. And when you're in that action mode, that's where the solutions start happening. That's where you start seeing the progress, right? And as a result, that's how you get on the other side.
Yeah, I mean that's very true. You mentioned 2 points here, which for me, which I take. You can say that that's a key takeaway from me. It's basically the purpose is one thing that keeps you focused and gives you the direction, and the other thing that you mentioned is like taking the ownership. It's taking the responsibility of not only of ourselves but of our loved one, and that is what something that gives us extra strength that you mentioned, that to work for something, not for ourselves but for the someone like who is dependent on you, or someone like who uh, your beloved, or like our beloved, so something is this is I think very important to actually for the self leadership, to assume that role that we are the one who are responsible not only for ourselves but for the others as well, right?
Yes, you summarized it so perfectly well in recap. So thank you for doing that. And you spot on, because a lot of times right now, specifically as we're seeing people, they're reaching their threshold of emotional capacity. Some people never had as a big one, or they're now, even if they had a vast, the magnitude of problems they're dealing with completely shattered their capacity to continue, right? So we need to figure out times and opportunity to rest, rejuvenate, recap, but also understand why we're doing what we're doing. And but one of the biggest things I'm bringing, what really helps me is actually having my why. My why was
Yes.
beyond just myself. And every time when we have that bigger, greater goal, as a mother, I'm assuming, and when you have a child, you do anything to protect that child.
Yeah.
Because that is not only your role and responsibility, but also you start tapping into motherly instincts, right? And then you wanted to make sure that you are doing possibly to protect that. Similarly, we see this opportunity right now. It's like what's important today is a job, is a family unit, is a combination of all of those. And what are we proactively doing to preserve that? Is safety is a huge issue right now, right? So how
Yeah.
do we do that?
Very true. So, like coming up to the the business environment. So, how do you think that the leadership skills are effective in flourishing any business environment? Why it is very important for nowadays, especially to have leadership skills to lead a successful business.
I love that question because we're having a magnitude of problems, but also magnitude of opportunities. So let
Mm.
me kind of stage a little bit so that people understand where I'm coming from. From all of my professional and personal career, I noticed huge deficit of leadership and different styles of leaders. And not in traditional just sense how they're labeled, but what I noticed, all the decision makers and people that created a lot of challenges and problems beyond responsibility for financially for companies or whatever it might be, or their people, they had a net title, but they necessarily did not have a leadership skill set.
Yeah.
And decades and decades ago, it's been created synonymous expectation that if I have a power and have a position, automatically I'm the leader, and people
Yeah.
automatically will give them credibility, automatically will listen and follow and endorse it. But those two things were never actually compatible. Very few and very rarely, right? What really is happening is now that people that are so prevalent and dominating and out there, we now, because of digital footprints and the modern age that we live in, we see a lot of these discrepancies. And when you look at what we're having right now on the global scale, we have the largest deficit of
Yeah.
leadership skill sets, the basic ones, let alone the ones that have traits that can lead us with complexity of the future, and what it takes to lead us into the future. So how do we now fill that and what is going on, right? So that is why I wanted just to say the leadership should never be associated with title. Unfortunately, sadly, a lot of people with title don't have a leadership skill set and they're not people focused. To me, the first and foremost, every person can lead and should lead their own life, people in sphere of influence around them in personal and professional setting. What is really, really missing is that opportunity where we are actually collectively working in harmony. We need more than ever, I call it champion of people, where we're championing for your success. Like, I'm here today to support you. I'm grateful that I'm here, your guest, and that you are asking all these great opportunities and questions. But if you're not people champion, right, I would not be here. And if I and that is the beauty, because when we champion for one another, when we're also giving opportunities for others to raise up and learn and give chances and opportunities to express themselves, and chance to be better version than yesterday of themselves, and creating opportunities to shine without worrying about what if this person's going to outshine me, what if this person
Yeah.
going to get promotion, what if this person is going to do X, Y, and Z. We're so worried about things that are actually totally not even reality, because so much need, and so much deficit, that
True.
means that is like so much opportunity. So no need for that kind of competition, but also more we are aware of how we fit in the environment, right? What we like about that working environment, how we associate with our peers, with our bosses, with organization, what that organization stand for. Are they walking the talk? Are they standing for all those values that their websites show? Are they standing
Yeah.
out for all of those mission and vision? Are they really inclusive in different opinion? I mean, all of those things are ultimately what brings everything together. And we have to be very, very intentional again. How is this fitting for us?
Yes, yes. I think you given us a very good answer. As you mentioned that that a lot of people come into the position where they are not ready for the position itself. Like they are given the titles, but they're actually not trained to lead people. They may be good managers. They are maybe really good at the work, but they don't know how to lead people, and that's where the problem arises. That people, they don't know that how to lead the people. They're just showing the authority, and that's actually create friction among team, and that creates like negative emotion about the leader, about the company. Although the person that may not have any sort of negative feeling or any bad emotion about their team, but only because they don't know how to lead creates more friction among the team. So that's very important aspect. But nowadays, like as the like businesses are evolving and the teamwork is and collaboration is increasing, so there's more focus on the self leadership, and there's like more focus, and that people are expected to perform as a leader even without a title. So how this can happen? What motivation it can bring to the people, or how they can have this skills develop in themselves as a self leader?
Obviously, everything starts with the foundation that you already have, right? And everything, as I mentioned, started for us since they were born. Our environment that we're being exposed, the environment that we're being initially raised before we even got to the school. And then what happened at school? What happened with all these conversations and influences of people around us, right? So if some people did not have that good foundation and they're now as adults recognizing deficits or recognizing things that they don't want to be, it's a great opportunity, as I said, to assess and decide who do you want to be? Who is
Yeah,
your great role model? Who do you model after? Who do you believe brought not only tremendous value, but also opportunity for you to accelerate and grow? And then when you start seeing and when you start building the momentum, don't stop. Keep going because it is ongoing lifelong, not only learning, but also leading because we have to live, then obviously to learn and then to lead, right? And
yeah,
only way we can learn is by taking massive action. And
yeah,
sometimes, even with best intentions, if you're kind, compassionate, if you're positive, and even if you fail and say, I'm sorry, I tried, I thought this would be the best way, I learned from this, but I really appreciate you for being patient with me while I was working on this, or for giving me great constructive feedback. I'm really super
yeah,
excited. How can I
yeah,
now adjust that I know more or do better? And that's
yeah,
where we fail. When we know more, and we all know what's right and wrong, right? We
yeah,
have an opportunity to do better. We're adults, and specifically, youngsters are mirroring what we're doing. Specifically, if you have children or if you are in environments where others can really see that. So make sure that they're mirroring something that is positive.
yeah,
So again,
yes,
when we know more, do better, adjust the game, and keep going. And you will
yeah,
get very quickly validation. We will see who resonates with you, who
yeah,
resonates with your intentions, with your actions. And as a result, you will know where you stand, right? And if you're
yeah,
not in an environment that offers freely that feedback, ask for it. Ask your peers, ask your bosses, ask your customers, because more again we self-discover, more we can know, oh my god, they love my enthusiasm, let me keep up on that. They love my honesty and love my transparency, I should
yeah,
continue doing exactly that. You see, and that is where starts this amazing beautiful opportunity to shape not only you as an individual, but also collaboration of the team and union of the team, because nobody can succeed specifically today on their own, right? So
yeah.
more than ever, it's important to have the right team and right environment for everyone to flourish. That's the difference. It's not just you and I, let's flourish and have a great time, but how
Yeah.
everybody around within our own sphere of influence can flourish too. That is that extra mile that we think it's impossible, right? But actually should be the common sense and should be the natural part of equation.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, as like Leslie says that life is not a competition. It's also about it's an experience we need to go. As Zamakari said, like people are getting promoted and receiving necessary ingredient of leadership. Leadership is not only acquired; it's taught. Really relevant point. Yeah, thanks, Zamakari. So, as like you said, that it's all about the environment. So, I think that the culture of the company plays a very important role because how people are actually, and that the culture is basically driven by the values of the people, and especially the role of HR is very important in that. So
Yes.
how to drive that culture that actually creates an environment where people feel psychologically safe in that environment. What are the main components? What are the main drivers that create that environment?
I love what you just said. I feel like the most of the HR models need to be changed. And I personally, I understand even the concept and name, and I played a lot in that space. But I really feel like it as like human resource. To me,
Yeah,
that takes away so much. It sounds very harsh because we're not as a human's resource.
yeah,
We're talent. And we need to, first of all, change approach to HR concept as well as the models. Models needs they're outdated. They don't work. That's why we see
yeah,
perfect example here that started this huge wave despite of economical insecurity and shift and change the great resignation that is going on in the United States. Because
yeah,
people are no longer anymore willing to tolerate nonsense,
yeah,
tolerate abuse, tolerate all of the stuff that are discongruent, they're non-matching, right? But
yeah,
also to have so much pressure on their shoulders, and then with this insane burnout. Because what
yeah,
happens? Why is resignation happening? And why? And it's continuing now, just rippling globally. The reason I want to say that when COVID happened, so many roles were trimmed, and people that stayed, they worked super extra hard. They worked in such a difficult environments. Not everybody has home office. Not everybody has optimal environment that they can work from home. And yes, on top of it, your colleagues again, you had a lack of support. You're also working virtually. All of a sudden, you have so many dynamics there. You're doing this to save from corporate level money, which we understand, but you cannot do it on the brunt of the burning out of the people. And now
yeah,
people are burned out, and now we're seeing environments that are not working. So why I'm bringing that up first before I bring the solution, we really need to go to the root cause.
yeah,
And if we don't address the elephants in the room, we're going to be fixing wrong problems. And
yeah,
as consultant and advisor and strategist, you'll be amazed how many intelligent people are in the room, and we still end up looking at things completely differently and solving wrong problems.
yeah,
Just because some people are not willing to go deeper or further, or they have specific assumptions, or they just want to solve the sliver of the issue versus cohesively, holistically whole, right?
yeah,
So now on the flip side, we have a chance to really celebrate the biggest asset. So companies that are seeing that actually not their clients are bigger assets, but that their biggest assets are their people. And as a result, the people and how they care of them and how they see them as amazing talents, then they're gonna take care of not only of internal stakeholders, but they're gonna take external stakeholders because there will be pleasure to work with them. They will demonstrate in their voice, in their passion, in quality of work, and everything else. And
yeah,
I see simple line here. It's to create that environment, right? But the willingness to come together as an organization. And that is where it really needs to click. And with the leaders that are already there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's You described it so beautifully, basically. Like these are the problems. It's there, and the bigger problem is that nobody actually wants to look at the problem itself, and sometimes they either they are unable to see or they just don't want to see. So I think the main problem is to actually highlight the problem, to define the problem, that what is the main problem, and only then they can actually go further on. So it's like, as you have you're the strategist, and you have turned around a lot of like businesses. So give us some example that where you have changed the productivity or the environment by changing the leadership. So how the leadership change has affected the productivity of the business. Maybe like you can give us some example from your experience so we can learn more.
Sure, that's a great question, and thank you again for going deeper on this. What
Yeah.
is happening? Just want to quickly point it out. We change only two times, and
Mhm.
sadly, we change always and most of the time, over 90%, when something excruciating painful, and when we are forced and have to, and very small percentage change proactively because we wanted to do things better and wanted to be ahead of the game and be proactive. Ironically, the way I was raised and being in Europe and European, I always was proactive thinker. So for me, it was huge shift being in U.S. environment and then dealing with the global companies and seeing how reactive and explosive they were and continue to be. So everything that we ignored, even before pandemic and change in global business and economy in the last 2 or 3 years, just alone, everything that we swept under rug, it's now forcing us to stare at us and create us so much conflict, challenges, and issues. So it's not about the blame game, but now with magnitude of problems, yes, could be extremely overwhelming. And if you don't have right skill set and capacity, it's really difficult, right? So one example, for example, I remember doing assessment of C-suite board a boardroom. And I knew before I even administrate that, and even before I needed to administrate that, because I was observing dynamics in the boardroom. Um, I knew that through this personality test, as a psychologist, I'm sure you're not only very familiar, but you know how certain behavior and types of personality affect us. I
Okay.
knew that most of that 14, 15 people in the room were actually identically the same. I was
Oh.
very close. We're like about 97, 98%. What we tend to do is hire people similar to us. And if then it's easy to agree, it's easy to get going. But that is the biggest blind spot because we don't see things as a whole, holistically, cohesively. And as a result, we have so many blind spots and we cannot solve the
Yeah.
solution. We can't find a solution and find a solution to the problem because of those impediments that we have. That is ironically why we're looking for consultants,
Yeah.
strategists, and external people to help because we created really bad environment to begin with.
Yeah.
So when that was done, this particular back to that example, I remember this particular CEO was insisting, Izabela, I want you to tell me what do you think about my team. They were top gun, alpha male sales guys, insane achievers. Ivy League schools, everything was the same in a way. But when it comes down to it, of this different positioning, there was no much differentiation. They
Yeah.
were like, how can you
Yeah.
now see even my perspective, my point of view? We're going to clash because you did
Yeah.
not used to be answering questions. You didn't used to getting different types of information. And I told him, I said, this is so beautiful in many ways, but it's also a problem because you guys are going for what's comfortable. And you cannot just work with people that are thinking and acting the same and have a similar background. So you're lacking diversity, you're lacking of inclusive way of thinking so that you can then solve your issues and your problems. Because even when you have the top guns that are great in sales, eventually customer will be tired of same repetitive way of doing business because their
Yeah.
business is changing. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to be
Yeah.
able to think on our feet. How can we now be more creative? How can we
Yeah.
be more proactive? How can we, as a leader, think 10, 15, 20 steps down the
Yeah.
road and
Yeah.
anticipate what's coming? That is very difficult. Not everybody can
Yeah.
do that.
Very true. I mean, yeah, I think that's a brilliant example that you gave, and I'm sure like our audience must have like gained clear understanding that about how leadership can affect the business. Actually, the thing is, the leadership is not just managing people at the moment. We need to have a vision. Leaders, I always say that leaders lead with a vision. They should have the vision that what do they want and where do they want to take the business from now. I mean, it's not only about the present moment and that like whatever they're earning at the moment. As you said, that where it would go from there to in the next 5 years or 10 years or in the next coming years. So yes, that's
Very
very
true, but just having the vision is not enough.
yeah,
If you have a vision and you're my leader and I'm working for you, but I am not in agreement, we're not in alignment, and we don't have a shared vision, it's not going to
yeah,
work. And right
yeah,
now we're seeing all these different visions and directions, but people, the most, again, the biggest asset of every organization, they're not including in that process, and they're
yes,
just being told. And when you're told, then you're not emotionally connected. It's
yes,
easier for you to disconnect. It's easier for
yes,
you to take your loyalty somewhere else, right? It's
true,
easier
very
to
true.
lose that person, not only emotionally, because every time, think about it, everybody
Yeah,
that's watching and listening, when you emotionally invested,
yeah,
you
yeah,
make magic happen. You don't want to look
very
what
true,
time it is. You're not talking about how tired you are, or you didn't have a lunch or dinner. You just keep going, right?
very true. Yeah, yeah,
And what
very
we're seeing is lack of emotional investment. And you can invest emotionally in something, A, that is not healthy, that is not right, that is also
true.
not presented to you, and that you cannot build and energize with it, right? So if you and I
Yeah,
are energized, which we are right now, and
yeah,
exchanging energy here on
yeah,
this topic, in this conversation, that's where
yeah,
magic happens, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
if
very
it's
true.
not that there, it's
Yeah.
very stale, it's very sterile, and cannot grow. It cannot flourish.
Absolutely. The conviction always comes from the heart. So, like whatever, when we are involved and when we deeply connect with the vision, and that's when the alignment comes in. That's very true. So I think there are lots of good comments from like again Zamachari during the career. I've met managers who were willing to manage properly but they didn't know how. Culture barrier, language barrier, fear to be misunderstood. They're also the second type who's putting a lot of focus on the result. The third is egoistic, I guess. Yes, I think you're right. These are the main thing. And let's see. Yeah, client and customers are the people, but I think the people who are working for the company are the main assets. Yeah. So, okay, so I think this topic is really interesting, and we can go on and on. But I'm afraid we are reaching to the end of the show. So, if anyone from the audience has any question, please feel free to ask. And meanwhile, I'll ask you to actually give our audience one advice today, like whatever you want to give us, just a one brief advice that you want to give to our audience today?
I just wanted to say you're phenomenal. You have way more skills and strengths and knowledge than you're giving yourself credit. Embrace it. Take a charge. Take the reins of your life. Don't wait. Don't be on sidelines. Show what's possible. Lead by example, and you will see magic happening. When you give yourself permission to shine, to be the best version of yourself every day, to be fearless, to step in that power, you will be amazed how far you can go and how much you
Yeah.
can achieve.
Yes, I think that's the wonderful advice. I think all they want is, I guess, just to have a belief in themselves and take the ownership. That's it. And that's exactly that you said. Thank you so much for being with us, and I'm sure our audience have learned a lot today from your experience. I thoroughly enjoyed the show, and I've learned a lot from you today. So thank you so much for sharing your experience and knowledge with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for participating, asking questions and comments. And after this is over, I will also reply back. So I just want to say thank you for phenomenal participation.
Yeah, thank you so much for everyone joining today and sharing your comments. And thank you so much. So, bye bye and
Bye
have a
bye.
great evening.
Thank you